Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Open Series in Oakland. I'm Nick Miller alongside
Glenn Jones. How are you guys doing?
You've been in the Sideboard many a times.
Yeah, I'm a little familiar.
And I like coming to the West Coast because I get to talk to you. You always play something sweet, whether in Legacy or in Standard. And today you're playing Jeskai Heroic in Standard. How'd you come to this? Combination of cards.
It's a little bit of a story, actually. I played at Grand Prix Los Angeles just a couple weekends ago, and I played there Ikawa's Red-White Soldiers deck from the Pro Tour. Changed around a few things, and I min-cashed the event, but I really liked it. I thought I made like 2 deck building errors that cost me matches, and then like 2 really close matches just that I don't think I could have won. So I was like, this deck seems really competitive, which a lot of people weren't giving it too much credit for. Especially it was very good against Abzan for me. So then I didn't really think it was going to be a good choice afterwards because everyone was playing sweepers as a result of the 2 mono-red decks making the top 8 of that tournament.
Drown and Sorrow and Anger the Gods just everywhere.
Yeah. Drown's wasn't that bad for that deck, but Anger was a particular problem. Like any deck that is angering you is like definitely going to be like much better against you post-board. So I was thinking about like ways I could combat that, and it took me a week. I didn't get to play this in the 50K I was playing the next weekend, but during that tournament I actually woke up from a fever dream. I'm not even kidding.
Where the best decks come from.
And I'm just mumbling to Caleb Durward the morning of his top 8 about how I solved all of my problems, which was this deck, basically, like the kernel of it. Because the Red-White Soldiers deck had like one particular dynamic that I didn't like, in addition to not having actual card advantage. You had Phalanx Leader and Soldiers with Heroic, and you generally didn't want to target a Phalanx Leader unless you had an army, and even when you did have an army, usually just making another guy was better.
Right.
So you had this Heroic guy that you generally just didn't want to target. Which obviously you only have so many spells that even target in the first place, so that's like actually pretty taxing. So the solution is you play Prowess.
Yep.
Prowess guys don't care if you target them, so if I have a Heroic guy and a Prowess guy, my spells are just getting max value every single time I cast them. And Prowess, obviously those guys are warriors, they're not soldiers, so I had to kind of readjust things. And Jeskai Ascendancy, very Obelisk of Erd-esque at times. You generally can cast both on turn 3. The mana seemed pretty doable. I'd seen some similar style decks of like trying to, obviously the Jeskai decks are relatively similar mana base, but I'm trying to play 1 and 2 drops much more frequently. So I'd already proven I could do it for Mana Confluence. The Seeker of the Ways gain back a lot of life that those confluences cost you, and I kind of just advanced it from there. And one of the nice things is you get to incorporate Jeskai Ascendancy as both the Anthem style effect, and it can actually be a combo finish.
Looks really good when you're not using it as only a combo thing, When you get to actually get some value off of it, +1/+1 to your team anytime that you play a spell. Lets you attack for some pretty big chunks.
It's really nice with Seeker because once an Ascendancy and a Seeker is in play, then all of your cantrips protect him from Lightning Strike, which is huge. Normally, that's like the spell he's most vulnerable to, considering where he lies on the curve. So that is very nice, and you can full combo people by using Springleaf Drum and Retraction Helix alongside a Jeskai Ascendancy and 2 creatures, one of which isn't summoning sick, which is really not that difficult to get to, especially when you're playing all these heroic creatures that make tokens, raise the alarm, and a bunch of card draws. So from that point, you essentially just tap a guy for drum, tap a guy to Helix the drum, use the mana you made off the drum to recast it, untap both guys, and you wash, rinse, repeat for as much +1/+1 as you want and the ability to loot through your deck, which can find you the second Helix, and another guy, if it's Acheron Crusader, you can make like a hasty guy, and then you can bounce all of their permanents and end the game that way.
Right, so you've got the creature base of a Acheron Crusader, Seeker of the Way, and your Vanguard of Brimaz, which are basically extra Acheron Crusaders as you described.
Yeah, I've basically got 6 Acheron Crusaders, except Vanguard of Brimaz is way worse than Acheron Crusader, but he's still not that bad.
And Raise the Alarm's a couple extra creatures as well.
Yeah, the Raise the Alarms are mostly like a main deck hedge. I board them out a lot, probably more than any other card in the deck because everyone's like bringing in sweepers against you. So in game 1, you're going really wide, and that's good. But in games 2 and 3, you don't want to go full wide because that's when they're going to have actual answers to that plan. So Raise the Alarm comes out a lot, but in the main deck, it's a creature that triggers Jeskai Ascendancy, which none of the other creatures in your deck do, and it also fills the graveyard for Treasure Cruise, which is the secondary.
I was going to bring that part up because Treasure Cruise is just absolutely dominating. From Modern, Legacy to even Vintage. Standard hasn't really used it yet to its full power, so seeing like an aggro combo deck have it in there along Tygon Scheming, you've got some card manipulation, and as you fill the graveyard, you get to refill.
Yeah, my very first list of this deck played 2 Treasure Cruises, and I liked them. I think I was goldfishing the deck, and I think Sam Pardee thought it definitely should play more, and so I moved to 3. And at 3, I was like firing them pretty consistently. I still just wanted to draw them a lot. Like it's just the card that I wanted to draw probably most often outside of Jeskai Ascendancy itself. So I decided to try 4, but 4 I felt I would not be able to fire quite that successfully without some help. So I added a Taigam Scheming, just one to try it out to start, and it was pretty good. I noticed that I would frequently be more interested in casting a Scheming on turn 2 than a Vanguard of Brimaz, because the creature is pretty vulnerable and I don't want to open him to dying without any value, so I'd like very frequently play a Seeker or Vanguard with 1 mana up on turn 3, but Taigam Scheming, a card I totally don't mind casting on turn 2 because there's no way for my opponent to gain value off of it. It's also its effect is relatively unique in this deck because between Defiant Strike, Dragon Mantle, and the Ascendancy itself, you actually have a lot of ways to get the card that's on top of your deck into your hand. So Taigam Scheming can sometimes function as like a 3-mana, Impulse-esque card that also fills the graveyard for Treasure Cruise. And I've decided to go to 2 kind of at the last minute for this tournament because I really wanted to figure out, is it working? Like, is it really what I want to be doing? And I think so. The real
reps in with it.
Yeah, I like it when I draw it. It's not a bad card to draw extra of in general. When you're like in a good, favorable board position, it triggers your Prowess guys, it triggers your Ascendancy, it digs for other ways to do both of those things. So I think it's good. I was really close to trying out Commune with the Gods, actually, or Commune with the Gods, just because I had, like, at one point as many as 7 green sources or something like that, and I was like, yeah, it's close, I can make it work. But I think I'm going to stick with the Scheming. It's a little less greedy.
Right. You've got a bunch of stuff from like either the blue-white heroic decks and the red-white heroic decks have been using like Defiant Strike and Johnny's Presence as protection. Dragon Mantle gets you value as well as getting your extra creatures. I like how with Seeker of the Way, whenever you cast anything on your heroic guys, not only if you have the Ascendancy in play, you're getting the buff, but double lifelink, more than one spell. So you can pump a guy, get the +1. Yeah. Your Seeker is just gaining you a ton of life.
Yeah, he's huge. He's probably like the second best creature in the deck behind Crusader, but if it wasn't for like just the nature of like the heroic strategy, like he is objectively obviously one of the more powerful cards in the deck. And this is the best Seeker of the Way deck in Standard. Nobody's making like a better, faster, stronger Seeker of the Way than this deck.
No doubt that you're getting huge chunks of life gain from Seeker in decks that just can't really do it the same way.
And one of the things worth keeping out is that the 3 primary like heroic enablers that I play, they can all also be cast on Seeker with nothing to go through a Courser of Crewfix, which is a very conscious decision. It's one of the reasons I'm not running God's Willing. Is because I want to be able to just run through Courser of Crewfix, because I can't afford to spend like actual time removing him when Siege Rhino is the most common follow-up, and there are only like so many helixes and then post-board like so many ride downs or whatever. So I don't want to have to actually kill a Courser. I just want to make it not matter.
Yeah, having a Johnny's Presence was good, even in last Standard when he just wanted to push through coursers. Was better than God's Willing in a sense because you got the extra power toughness as well.
And it's a reasonable mana sink for when you're flooding, which happens sometimes.
In a pinch can protect you from a board wipe too.
Yeah, that's one of the nice parts of having all of them main is I don't really need to hedge my sideboard as aggressively against end hostilities because I have just 4 negates for end hostilities in my main deck already.
Speaking of the sideboard, you said you had some ride downs. You also got what looks to be a semi-transformational sideboard with 4 Monastery Swift Spears if you want to get your beat down on even more.
Yeah, it's kind of frequent that some decks have a lot of sideboard against Jeskai Ascendancy, and that's fine. I don't mind them having ways to remove Ascendancy because in the post-board games, I'm going to be way less focused on comboing them, way more focused on just getting through whatever they're presenting now that I can like adjust my deck to be perfect, basically. Swift Spear would be a great card in this deck. I would probably be happily jamming 4 in the main deck, except for how popular green decks are, and he's really bad against green decks. None of the spells in the deck all by themselves get him through Courser of Crewfix, with the exception of Dragon Mantle, which is like a little iffy because you need 3 red mana to do that. 3 red mana total to do that, and that's like not a great spot to be in. And like I said, you can't afford to spend actual time on a Courser of Crewfix. You have to just not care.
In a deck without Titan strength, it's tough to push through the green.
I really tried to make strength work as well. And there may be a version of this deck that can incorporate Titan strength. I was at the point where I was considering doing 2 Swift Spear, 2 Titan strength in the main deck, and I was like, this just looks stupid. Like, I felt awful. And Titan strength's nice with Vanguard too for the same being able to attack through Courser, but in general, I did not find a configuration that made me think it was worth it, so I'm not doing it. You're welcome to try it. I wouldn't rule it out. It could very easily be cut 3, raise the alarm, cut a Scheming, cut a Cruise, and play 3 Swift Spears and 2 strengths, and then cut some other stuff to make room for more or something like that.
Then of course you got some Titan strength, another card that looks fun with the heroic strategy. Can make your guys survive and anger the gods, I assume.
Triton Tactics was one of the inspirations for adding blue in the first place because it's obviously super good against Anger of the Gods, just in general. It's also quite good against Bile Blight, Drown in Sorrow, and other aggressive decks. Just playing it as an actual Triton Tactics, like the purpose of the card, is a real blowout in multiple matchups. Like I think it's quite good against Teamer. I haven't really gotten to test the matchup, but it seems like it would be awesome. And it's just another big whammy they have to play around. The deck has so many cards that make it really tricky. Like with a Mystic Monastery up, I could have like a Helix and a Johnny's Presence, a Defiant Strike, a Triton Tactics, a Stubborn Denial, like just so many things, and that's that's overload on a lot of people. They're just like, whatever, attack, I can't figure it out, and that's a good spot to be in. The ride downs are like, they're only okay. I like them against the green decks, but they're really bad on the draw, so I usually only bring in like one on the draw.
Any consideration to like a launch the fleet, or is that similar to Titan Strength where you just don't have room for it?
I don't think it's that good for the same reasons that Raise the Alarm is coming out a lot. Like in game 1 it's a card that would be okay, but in games 2 and 3 it would be generally quite poor. The other issue is you do have to have guys in play to use it. There are already a lot of cards in the deck that like follow that, and this deck has like only 10 real creatures that you would ever want to like target, and you do sometimes Dragon Mantle up or Raise the Alarm. There's no shame, it happens, but not ideal. The Launch the Fleet in the Ikawa deck had the exact same thing going on for me personally. Like I boarded it out very frequently because in game 1 I'm going really wide, and then in games 2 and 3 I was focusing in and trying to like mid-range through them essentially, and the Launch the Fleet is quite mediocre against sweepers.
Okay. Well, the deck is definitely pretty sweet. You're 1-1 with it so far. You got 8 more rounds of standard here, so good luck. Thank you for the sweet deck tech.
Yeah.
For more action here in Oakland, stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long.